The recording has now begun. Paula, would you like to take over with an introduction? Paula, are you available? Okay, Rich, would you like to begin the introduction, please?
This is Rich Schneider. I don't know at this point in time what I should do for the introductions because honestly I can't introduce the TOC portion of the webinar. Maybe Rick can self-introduce.
Okay, this is Rick Viohl. Can you all hear me?
Yes, Rick.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Rick Viohl. I work in the NAVFAC Chief Engineer's Office. I'm a member of the Tri-Service Cost Engineers Steering Committee and the leader of the Tri-Service team that has been working on the total ownership cost template to be used with design-build projects. And so I'm going to go through a short presentation. I know we don't have a whole lot of time today, but I'm going to give you all a taste of what this template is, what it was designed for, where we are in testing it in a pilot program, and then I think maybe Paula would like to open up the discussion at that point. So we'll begin. First of all, Jordan, am I in control of the slides here, or are you going to move them?
You are in control of the slides. I'll just need you to let me know when you're prepared for the Excel portion.
Okay, very good. Okay, as I said, this is a Tri-Service initiative. We were this team was tasked to start working on this tool more than 4 years ago by the Senior Executive Engineering Panel, ESEP, which is made up of Joe Gott, NAVFAC's Chief Engineer, as well as James Dalton and the Air Force, and I believe the Marine Corps as well as represented, as well as OSD, I&E, Mike McAndrews' staff. And the initiative was to try to come up with a way to measure the total ownership costs of competing design-build proposals when we get them in as part of the technical evaluation. We spent a lot of time trying to figure out if there was any such kind of tool out there that could be used and readily adapted for DoD use, and we couldn't find any such thing. Most of all, the life cycle cost or total ownership cost tools that were out there were for a design process and selecting individual building components as you're designing a building, and it wasn't so much available for something like this where we've only got a concept design, not a very much design defined. And so we decided we had to develop something from scratch. We went through a bunch of industry forums. We met with AGC, DBIA, ACEC, and AIA several times over the 2 years. And we gradually, with their help, came up with the tool that we'll walk through today. And basically, I've just covered some of the background. As you are well aware, there's been a lot of discussion and questions from the Hill down to the services over the last 2 or 3 years about, how are we including life cycle cost considerations in our design and construction of military construction projects. And this was one of the areas where we had to say, well, we maybe need to do a better job. So this is why the design build evaluation tool was developed. It's been most recently, this past March, We briefed it to Dave Sinecki up at the HASC staff, and so they are aware that we're working on this initiative. As I said, we've got less than 15% design definition, so we had to come up with a way to try to get a snapshot, if you will, of total ownership cost at that stage of a project's life. For sustainment, we eventually gravitated toward what's called Pareto's principle, or distribution principle, which says that basically 80% of the cost of something is typically attributable to 20% of its cost factors. You'll see how we applied that in the sustainment analysis portion of this template shortly. And also we've attempted, even though what you're going to see later when we get into the actual spreadsheets is going to look pretty complicated, and big, huge spreadsheets with lots of rows and columns, we have actually automated a lot of this to the maximum extent possible so that the amount of work for the government team preparing the RFP and the amount of work for the offerers preparing their proposals is as minimal as can possibly be, given that we still need some kind of information on sustainment and energy and initial construction cost. Our template also ended up using a standard 40-year period of analysis. We went all over the place on that very question of how long it should be, whether we should have a different analysis period based on the type of facility, based on how long a given type of facility typically lasts in our inventory versus other ways to choose the analysis period. And we ended up with 40, mostly because it's kind of similar to the energy guidance in law in terms of evaluating energy systems, energy performance. So we went with the 40-year analysis, and we are using it for all different facilities, and that is one way to try to simplify this so that we don't have to have different analysis periods. Again, as we're only looking at a snapshot of total ownership cost, the exact analysis period is not probably as critical. And we're using net present value. We're trying to get out of having to predict future inflation and bringing everything back to the current cost. It's one of the two standard ways to approach a life cycle cost analysis calculation, and so we chose that one. Since we have modeled baseline information for energy and sustainment in the template, we have at this point got 14 types of facilities that can be used, that can use this template. And it will be expanded if we decide to invest further in this tool. But right now it's 14 types, and these are the types listed here. The reason it's limited is because we have actually modeled the energy for each of these 14 facilities in every climate zone, and for a large building and a small building in each of those climate zones for each of those facility types, so that all that information, all that energy modeling information, is actually in the template. So when you choose one of these facility types for, say, the bachelor quarters, all that information is all pre-populated for either a small or large facility. So when you put in the size of your facility, this template will come up with a baseline energy analysis. Same for sustainment. It's been modeled for each of these types. We're looking at basically three major pieces of the total ownership cost: the net investment, which is your facility design and construction cost, which on the government baseline side is your DD 1391 cost, and on the proposal side is the offeror's proposal cost. On energy, we're looking at the model baseline energy like I just indicated, and on the offeror side for energy, they would be using any of the whole building energy simulation software products that are out there to do the energy modeling on their proposal based on their concept design. On sustainment costs, the government baseline side uses, again, DoD sustainment modeled cost data for each of those 14 facility types. And for the offerer, we're asking them to go to RS Means and pulling out certain information for certain limited numbers of building components based on our template and the way it's developed. I'm not going to spend too much time in the net investment. I think most people know, initial construction cost. The thing here that's important is that we're not looking at any factor for building service life. We're assuming in this model or this template that all the facilities that we're going to use it for are going to have at least a 40-year service life. And if they're longer than that, it's not going to affect the calculations. We're just taking it out to 40 years. Now, component service life is considered, and we can talk about that in more detail later. Building terminal value is also not considered. Now, most life cycle cost analysis, equations would include some value at the end of the analysis period. When you're looking at the macro snapshot here and looking at the 80%, 20%, what's important rule, that terminal value is generally not in that 20% of the most important cost factors. So in order to, again, simplify things, we did not include terminal value. Under the energy, I think I have already explained how we modeled on the baseline side. The assumptions were that it would be modeled for a large and small building. We have size ranges built into the template. If you're outside that size range for some reason, it probably would not be usable. But it should cover 99% of the facilities that we're contemplating in each of those facility types. And then we modeled it for each of the climate zones and for each of the census regions. And this is CONUS only. We don't really have this tool designed yet for overseas. It automatically calculates the baseline energy cost. And we've got built into here the NIST handbook energy escalation rates. We'll look at that in a minute. And we can handle up to 6 different kinds of energy in terms of putting in the local utility rates, local energy rates for these types of energy sources. And in the RFP, we would include such information as the building occupancy and use parameters and the utility rates, the climate zone to be used, etc. So that everybody, all the offerers are modeling things on the same set of assumptions and parameters. The only difference would be on their approach to the design of the building, their concept design. And the other thing that's important is when they do this whole building energy simulation, they would be putting in the first year's energy cost for the various different systems that we're looking for in the template, first year only. The template will then take that first year and multiply it and adjust it over the next 40 years with all the discount factors, etc. So it's just the first year's energy consumption that we're looking for in the template from the offerers. We do have built in the capability of including renewable energy if the RFP allows the offerers to propose renewable energy, and that ends up being a credit or a negative amount in the template, which would be a plus in their trying to lower their total ownership cost. So we do have that built in as well. And on the sustainment side, we're using DoD sustainment unit cost data from the UFC that's published annually. And it's broken down, though. In this case, we had an outside consultant help us break it down into the components of the building. And the government team takes that information, which is in the template. All that information is already built into the template for all 14 facility types. And they then look at what they consider the most important based on percentage of the sustainment costs that each of those components contributes. They pick those most important. When they have picked the most important in the baseline, they then automatically transfer that same list of components to the offerer's workbook, and the offerer will be responding with sustainment information on the same components. But it's only about 6 to 10 of these uniform at level 3 building components. There are 48 altogether. So we're looking at a small number of them, and those are the cost drivers. And we don't care about the rest. It's again the 80%, 20% rule at play. This is just a visual for the top cost drivers in sustainment for 7 of those 14 facility types, just to give you a flavor of the differences that you can see between different types of facilities. This is the starting point again for the government team developing the RFP, and they'll start with this, and then they'll look and see, well, if they've already determined that the ceiling or the floor finishes are going to be a certain type and there's not going to be any variation allowed, well, then they wouldn't include that type of component. So it might be a shorter list, or they might add another component that they think is, because of the particular nuances of the project, going to be important in sustainment costs. So they have the ability to modify the list. And once they've chosen those components, then the same components are looked at both in the baseline and in the offeror's workbook. And this is just how we get up to roughly 80% on each of these facility types, but we don't need to spend time on that. And as I mentioned, I think that the offers will be asked to go to RS means as the data source. And we're telling them exactly which piece of information for each of these building components we want them to provide. If something is not in RS means because it's new technology, hasn't made it into an RS means database, there is an other line allowed in the template in each of these component areas, and they can provide their own information provided they provide us with some kind of backup documentation of where they're getting this information from. Now, the last year or so is where we actually spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to use this tool in our procurement process, and that was probably the toughest part. And this is where it has ended up for NAVFAC at this point. It is evaluated as a technical factor, and we look at the validity and the value of the TOC in realizing the long-term savings. And it's important to remember that in each case, the proposal's TOC is compared to the government baseline TOC, not to another proposal's TOC. So in each case, we're comparing it to the government baseline, and then we're coming up with an adjectival rating. We're still working on that adjectival rating, by the way. We just had a long conference call yesterday on the results of our first pilot at Norfolk, and that was one of the issues there, so we're still working on that. They ended up having to fall back to acceptable, non-acceptable type of evaluation, and it wasn't quite what we were looking for, so we're still working on that. And then for NAVFAC, the TOC is typically one of 4 Phase 2 technical factors, and usually equal to the others, which are technical solutions, small business, and safety. Now, in our case, this total ownership cost factor is replacing our standard energy and sustainability factor, which is a narrative factor, where we ask the offers to give us their proposed solutions and benefits of what they're going to do in their concept, but that's all through a narrative. In this case, we're trying to quantify it for the first time. So I guess the takeaway here is that it's you were looking at sustainment costs for 6 to 10 building components and not all of the building. We're looking for input of first year's energy consumption for just those building components that consume energy. We are looking for some backup documentation, and this LEED EA Credit 1 summary report comes from all of the commercial whole building energy simulation software packages out there, and that allows our government team to see a nice summary of the inputs and the outputs to that energy analysis. And then we do also have a narrative still accompanying this, so that we have some ability for further explanation. One thing I should mention is that we are not, we're well aware that we are asking the offerers to do a little more design up front in order to be able to figure out, this information and to provide it. We recognize that. There was a lot of discussion with industry on this, and but not all the detailed design assumptions that go into this analysis are going to be held through the final design. What is going to be held is that the final design TOC for the winner must be equal to or less than the proposal TOC. And so we will have that analysis done again. By the way, Jordan or whoever, am I running out of time?
No, you're doing okay right now.
Okay. Okay, so we are standardizing the content and the calculation of this analysis and what we're getting in the proposals. As I said, the tool automatically calculates everything from the first year out to the 40 years, so there's a lot of the mechanics have been taken care of, and then the results are adjectively evaluated, and then the final TOC must be less than the proposal TOC. And we're hoping that this will show a further improvement in the energy conservation and sustainable and best value determinations of our design build projects. We'll talk about that shortly. We've got 2 pilot projects underway. The first one I mentioned earlier at NAVFAC, that was awarded. It was actually awarded back in August. There was a protest, so it just became available to us recently to get into the detailed review of what we got. That was a big project, a high-rise. We got some really meaningful results. As it turned out, because of the difficulty in trying to establish metrics to determine adjectival ratings on some of the results, we didn't have the impact on the final determination of who was the best value contractor. The TOC really didn't play that much into it, so we do have a learning curve there that we're working on, and that is something we probably need to test some more. And the second pilot project, that has received proposals. They're currently into technical evaluation right now. Both of these projects had RFIs and discussion. Surprisingly, not more than typical for any project. Some of it was related to TOC, but not an inordinate amount. So I think we've gotten over the first hurdles of we've got something that's doable, and we got some meaningful results. Our feedback from yesterday's phone call with the NAVFAC Mid-Atlantic folks that handled this project at Norfolk was that they thought it was valuable, even with the extra time and effort and learning curve for both them and the offerers. So that was good to hear yesterday, and I'm pleased to share that with you all today. Now, basically, we just talked about that. And we are going through an exhaustive review to try to make sure we've got something that is giving us meaningful results, that we can verify what we're getting from the contractors, that the efforts that are involved in both the government team and the contractors is reasonable and justified, and are more revisions and more pilots required. On that second one, are the efforts reasonable? We've got the initial feedback from the government team on that first Norfolk pilot, but we don't have it back from the bidders yet. And we fully intend to go back to all of the bidders on that project, including the losing bidders, and get their honest feedback. We'll be working with AGC and the other industry organizations to help us with that, and we anticipate that by the end of February we will be meeting with those bidders and getting their feedback as well. At the very last slide there, Jordan, if you can go to the very last slide. Yeah, that's the one I just wanted to point out to everyone. That is the link to our public TOC template web page that anybody can get to. It's outside of our Navy firewall, and so you can all get to it. We are continually updating the documents there. Not only this presentation, but the actual TOC template and a guide and the language that we put into the RFP for the technical evaluation factor for TOC. All those things are on that page, so you're welcome to look at those and give me a call or get back to me with any questions. At this point, if we have like a couple of minutes, I'll just really give you a tease of a view of one of the workbooks. So Jordan, if you'd pull one of those up.
There we go. Is it visible?
Okay, we're not going to go. Yes, I can see it. I hope everybody else can. Okay, we're not going to go through all the spreadsheet. They're huge. This first one that we're looking at, the first tab, Offeror Sustainment. This is the offeror's workbook, what they would get in the RFP. It has almost 600 rows in it, and that's because we've got every uniformat level 3 and every uniformat level 4 breakdown of building component in this spreadsheet. So it's a master spreadsheet. This spreadsheet would be reduced drastically by the government team before it gets put in an RFP, because it would be down to the critical few 6 to 10 level 3 components that we want information on. The other thing to note here is that the light green cells, and I hope everybody can see that color, the light green cells are the only cells that the offerors have to put information into. Everything else is pre-populated or government entered, including the tan cells on the top. So this is part of the automation. It's going to be limited number of components that are looking for information, and then they're pre-set up, if you will, for the information we're looking for. And in each of these categories at level 4, there's an other where they can put in something else that's not in RS means right now.
Yeah.
Okay, if we go to the next tab, which is the Offer Energy tab. That's a similar looking spreadsheet. It has the green cells that the offer would be asked to put in their energy consumption for the first year. Oops, we lost it. At the moment, I'm not seeing anything. Oh, there it came back. Okay. Okay, we're not going to go into this in detail either, but again, it's a minimal number of green cells to be filled out by the offeror for the first year's energy consumption. The next tab, the reference tab, is just all the lookup, the drop-down tables and the backup information that builds into the first two tabs. Energy cost projection tab, which is the next one, is where we've built in the energy discount factors over the next 40 years, obtained from the NIST Handbook 135. So all that's already in the template and used in the calculations in the first two tabs. And finally, the last tab there, Offer TOC Summary, is where it all comes together. And this is where we compare this particular offeror's TOC to the baseline TOC, and there's a lot of subtlety in here and how those numbers come in here and are manipulated, but it's the final summary. And that's, I think, all I really needed to show you today. I think Paula would like to open up the discussion. I think, Paula, if you're there.
Paula's on the list as a guest, but I don't hear her. I don't hear her.
Okay. Tony, is Tony there? Tony Colicchio?
Oh, yes, I'm here.
Sorry, Paula has now.
Yeah,
Okay, did you want to fill in for Paula? Any discussion? Yeah.
I was going to say that we here in the Corps have been watching. We've been working with the Navy. The Navy's had the lead. They've done a great job, especially feeling with the private industry. And unfortunately, we really haven't been able to really hook into a pilot project like the Navy has. But we're looking at it. We want to get something local within the Washington, D.C. area. That's where the Navy's expertise is. We're hoping the Navy would help us with the first one or two pilot projects. They got the experience, the technical capability to do that. But the final project, design build with fits one of the models with the high dollar value, because we're looking at maybe 30, 40 million and above. Because anything less than that would really be a burden on a small contractors. So anyways, it's been difficult to find something. Hopefully we may have to go out to the Midwest to possibly find a pilot project next year or two. That's all I have to say.
Good afternoon, this is Paula. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I can hear you, Paula, yes.
That is fabulous. Well, thanks to everyone for tuning in, and sorry that my computer was going in and out before. I just wanted to say that I think both the TOC and LEAD, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, are great opportunities to participate in pilot projects. They're also great opportunities to help shape policy if you would like to help shape policy. I know Tony said that we would like to have something on the East Coast. However, if you have something somewhere else and it's a super good pilot project, we might find a way to work around the distance limitations. But we're open to projects if they can be one of those project types that's already in TOC. That's best because that's what they have preloaded. And Rick might want to just give those examples one time before we go on to the LEAD version 4 pilot program.
I'm sorry. You want to know those 14 types again?
Yes, please. Just as a reminder to everyone.
Oh, okay.
Or just a few.
Yeah, we don't have the slide up, so I have to find my paper copy. Yeah. Basically, it's airfield fire and rescue stations, air control towers, general purpose instruction buildings, an applied instruction building, reserve training facility, indoor firing range, an aircraft maintenance hangar, which is a high bay one, vehicle maintenance shop for wheel and track, small arms storage, or basically an armory, general administrative facility, and enlisted unaccompanied personnel housing. Oh, I've got a couple more. Dining facility, nursery and child care facility, and indoor physical fitness. That covers at least a third of the fit-up, from my understanding.
Just as a reminder to all guests, just as a reminder to all guests, down in the lower right-hand corner, there's a file share, which I have loaded all of the information and presentations that are available here today. And then this presentation will also be recorded and posted to the S&E website. So we have had some questions come in about the availability of these slides and the links. And I just want to point out that they are available in the lower right-hand corner, as well as on the S&E website once this presentation has been posted. Thank you.
So great. Thanks to Rick. I got an opportunity to sit in on his TOC meeting yesterday, and it was very informative and very good. Next we have Chrissy Macken from the U.S. Green Building Council, and she's going to talk about LEAD version 4 and a pilot program that they have that's open up to us to have pilot projects in as well. Chrissy? Chrissy?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we
can.
Is my microphone working? Okay, great. Excellent. Thank you all for having me today. As was mentioned, my name is Chrissy Macken. I am the Assistant Program Manager for LEAD version 4, which is the newest update to the LEAD rating system that includes a pretty comprehensive testing phase that we're referring to as the beta program. So I'm going to talk to you all about that today, what the central components of the program are, and if you're interested, how to participate. So, it seems like these are, I don't know what view you all are seeing, but there we go. Okay, excellent. So just in terms of a program overview, the LEAD version 4 beta is a test and review of all of the core components of the LEAD rating system. So we're looking at the forms, the reference guide, the certification process, really from a user perspective, all of the elements of the program that you all engage with every day as you use it. So we want our beta projects to provide feedback from now until the launch of V4, which we're expecting to be in November of this year. And we have it open to all of our rating systems and market sectors that are covered by V4. So all of our space type adaptations, whether they're healthcare, data centers, warehouses, all location sectors and project sizes. We want to get as comprehensive of a view from our user perspective with how the program itself is working. Is it usable? Is there market acceptance that we can translate to market demand for the program so we can ultimately have a high quality and successful launch? So some candidates for participation. What we're looking for is bringing in 100 projects through the beta process. At this point, we have 61 projects registered, so we still have 39 spaces left for projects that are actively engaged in the certification process in 2013. So what that means is, if you're a new construction project, we're looking for projects that are either gearing up for and submitting for their design review or perhaps their construction review in 2013. An EBOM project, an existing building, may be able to go through the entire process and actually complete certification. For a commercial interior, the same may be true. So we want to be flexible in the engagement that our projects are giving us based on which rating system they're using. So knowing that new construction may take a long time, if we can get through one of those phases with our beta projects, we'll get some really great feedback throughout the course of this year. So again, as I mentioned, either preparing documentation in a review phase or actually submitting for your full certification will give us that feedback on those central components of the rating system and the program itself. So why participate? For those of you who are familiar with LEED version 4 that's been in development, you'll know it's a much more technically rigorous rating system. There's more credits. They're in a lot of ways technically more challenging. And so what's the incentive here for participating, and why do it? So for one thing, project teams who are participating get to impact the final program, which is hugely important to USGBC as we are constantly trying to engage stakeholders as much as possible through our development of our programs. LEED version 4 as a rating system has gone through 5 public comment periods over the past 3 years. We've had hundreds of stakeholder meetings, lots of engagement on the rating system side. This year we're turning that to the reference guide, the forms, the certification process. We want to make sure that that engagement is there, not just for the rating system, but for all of these other central components. Beta participants are also offered direct prioritized access to USGBC staff. So upon registering for the program and paying the registration fee, projects are assigned a point of contact from our USGBC team. This is the central person who you can get on the phone with, you can email with to ask all of your questions, and they will route those questions to where they need to go and ensure that you're getting a timely response and that you're getting consistent answers for your projects. A very important aspect, we want to make sure that we're having a much more engaging certification experience for our users. Additionally, all beta projects are given up to 3 free LEED interpretations, so that fee is waived. In addition, free access to our electronic reference guide for participating. We have a number of promotional opportunities from our marketing and communications department, which is really great offering. We also have a number of partners, I guess not official partners, but a number of firms that we work with. For example, Building Green is working on a story for beta projects to feature them, and so there's a lot of opportunities to get some profile around the project and have the word get out about participation in this new program. At Greenbuild 2013, we'll be doing recognition of all of our beta projects, whether you've completed certification or are still working toward it. So that'll be a great opportunity for some additional exposure. Also, we'll be collecting information from all of our USGBC beta projects to be as part of our featured case studies and the education that we develop for the larger version 4 market. So this is absolutely an opportunity to be a pioneer and to have your project as a beta participant really serve as beneficial to the rest of the market, and that's really something we're trying to promote through this. Finally, for those who go through the program, the benefit of being an early adopter and having the documented version 4 expertise and experience when we do launch the program will, help you all with your own professional development, so certainly something to think about. So for projects that are looking to participate at this point, all of our 61 projects are using the 5th public comment version of the LEED version 4 rating system that's available online. We do expect that this is either the or a very close to the version of the rating system that will go to ballot. We also have the campus application of the credits available. So for those of you who do use campus as a feature of your rating systems that, along with our recertification guidance for EBOM projects, along with even our international requirements, has all been developed alongside the reference guide development process. And so there won't be that lag time in waiting for core pieces of the program like Campus to be available for use. Those are available right now. I believe we have 2, maybe 3 Campus projects that are using Campus in the beta, so we'll get some great feedback on that as well. As I mentioned before, we also do have some new market sectors that LEED version 4 covers, so this is a great opportunity if any of these new sectors would apply to you to test those out and see if the features really do assist our market sectors in better using LEED. So if you're interested in enrolling, we have an online enrollment process that is very similar to registering in LEED Online. We're looking for the same information, but it's a form that you fill out in a separate on a separate web page. You select your rating system that registers you. You're billed for registration at the LEED 2009 rates. You get a project contact assigned, and then you get access to our online network that's called Yammer. So essentially the way that this works is, for beta, we wanted to have a space where our project teams could not only engage with themselves, but also engage directly with all of the other beta projects, as well as directly with USGBC staff. And so Yammer is essentially Facebook for business, and so there's a lot of great features to it that as you enroll, you have access to. So it's a great place to ask questions of other teams, of USGBC. You can set up your own private groups and upload documents to share with your project team members, or if you have a technical question and someone from USGBC needs to see that documentation, you can all be sitting in a group together and working through that. So lots of great features that should help the overall certification experience be much, much better. And again, of course, once you register, you also have access to the other benefits that I talked about. So one of the things that we want to make sure that we're adequately providing is support to those project teams. So we know that there will be a lot of questions related to the overall process, initial project setup, technical guidance, as well as a lot of feedback opportunities for our project team. So we wanted to be able to provide as much time as possible per project and allow the most number of projects in. So as I said, we're bringing in 100 projects, about 60% of the way there. With the 5 hours per quarter that you see with regard to technical guidance, that essentially means 5 hours per quarter of being on the phone with someone from our technical team, which is actually quite a lot of time. That would be a lot of questions, but we do have that gauged out that we're able to ensure at least that amount of time per project, and then as needs arise, we can certainly handle those as well. So finally, if you are interested in taking that next step, review the rating system and the changes. We also have toolkits for BD&C and EBOM projects that we can distribute to help you really understand the major changes between the rating system. If you want the online enrollment form, you can just email me. Again, pay the registration fee, ask your questions to the point of contact. We host monthly calls with each of the project teams as a group to help keep everyone up to date, provide a chance for folks to ask questions of each other and to USGBC staff. And of course, for those of you who are participating, we want you all announcing that and marketing yourselves, but we do have project teams are made accessible to privy information, things like the drafts of the reference guide, the drafts of the forms, but we want that content kept private and among our beta projects. So as part of participation, we do ask that project teams sign a non-disclosure agreement only related to the forms, reference guide, our LEED Online, our proprietary material that we don't want getting out before it's in its final form for the market. And of course, bringing the final step of bringing a project through certification, you'll be featured as a leader at Greenbuild. So that's the really quick overview of the program. I wanted to provide as much time as possible for questions, so I'm happy to take those now.
Well, if no one else is going to ask a question, this is Rich Schneider. I wanted to ask, is there a way to transition from a registration in LEED v3 to LEED v4?
There is, and projects can do that at no cost. So depending on how far along the project is through the LEED version 3 or the LEED 2009 process, we may or may not recommend that they do. And it also depends on the rating system. But if you've already submitted for, if you're a new construction project and perhaps already submitted for your design review, it may not make sense to switch to V4 just because of the significant changes in new construction. That being said, if you registered a year ago and your project's been on pause and you haven't really done anything, this might be a great time to transition to V4. So yes, absolutely allowed. You're not billed again for registration. We just transfer that cost assignment over. And yeah, if you had a specific example in mind that we could talk about offline, we can help you figure out if it makes sense to do that.
Well, with no one else asking questions, I'll ask another one. Are you looking for any particular facility types or building types?
Great. Yeah, so we want project representation in all of our different rating systems, but of the 60 that we have so far, what we're still looking for out of the other 40, certainly, you know, we're targeting our new market sectors, so retail, schools, data centers, but any project that would potentially be using the campus application, certainly it would be great to have a military installation. I don't believe we have one at all yet. Anything that has a level of complexity associated with it, from our perspective, is really great to bring through because it'll help us work out a lot of those challenges when we're in this beta phase. And then when we launch to the whole market would be much more helpful because those problems are solved. So certainly the more complex, in my opinion, the greater challenges you're bringing. In beta, you have that opportunity to work one-on-one with us. So it will be, participating projects will find that it will be a much improved.
Are there any regions of the country that aren't addressed yet that you might want to include, and would overseas projects also apply?
Yes, overseas absolutely apply. Right now, we are at about, I think, 20 to 30% outside the U.S., which is fantastic, and I would love to see that number grow. Within the U.S., you know, I'm going to have to look. This is very random, but if there are projects actually in the Philadelphia area, those I would love to see. Since we're honoring these projects at Greenfield 2013, I'd love to see representation from the Philadelphia area. You know, we don't actually have many in the Northeast, now that I'm thinking about it. We do have a number in Florida and California, Chicago. So yeah, I mean, certainly the middle of the country, and then, you know, Texas, Southeast, that would be great as well, Southwest. So yeah, there's a lot of room certainly for some regional. We do have the West Coast pretty well covered right now, which, you know, is to be expected.
Do you have a question? I've got you back on audio as a presenter. Okay, what about Jeanette?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. This is Paula Loomis. I wanted to say I don't have a question, but I've had a question asked, yes. And that was if headquarters was going to provide funding for some of these pilot projects and for the additional effort that might go into it. And the answer is potentially, and that will depend on what is brought forward, how the additional effort is outlined, and then what funds are available. So I thought I'd add that. Thank you.
Okay, Rich.
And I think I've unmuted my microphone. This is Jeanette. Can you hear me now?
Hi, Jeanette. We can hear you now.
Okay. So we have a question.
Go ahead, Jeanette.
About, I just wanted to connect on time frame. Chrissy, you had said that you guys are looking for projects that are submitting actively in 2013. So you're looking for projects that are submitting either design or construction documentation in this calendar year. Is that correct? Okay, so not something that's starting.
Yes.
No,
yeah,
go
and
ahead.
some projects registered. We opened registration. Oh, go ahead. I was just saying we had opened registration in late October, so yeah, some projects have been working now for a little over 2 months, but essentially we'd like, at minimum, document preparation by the end of October,
Okay.
so that we have a chance to get feedback on some core component of the program prior to launch.
Hi, this is Scott Wick at headquarters. I just wanted to tack on a little bit to what Paula had said. There is a possibility of additional funding if you pursue this endeavor. I just wanted to be specific. It's pretty certain that we could probably get you some additional P&D funds. It's reasonably certain that we could get you some SNA funds. But as most of you know, the MILCON limitation is pretty much set in stone. There's no additional construction or project funds on that effort. Paula is absolutely correct.
Okay, Rich, you have a question?
Well, I didn't have any more questions, but I wanted to make an appeal, and that is the Assistant Chief of Staff Installation Management really wants to select a project or projects to be able to test LEED V4 application for the Army. So we're hoping to get volunteers to step forward to go through the pilot program. Scott, I can't speak for you, and I can't speak for Paula, but I think it was hoped that if there were funds available, this could be a major learning process for the Corps of Engineers project teams to be able to learn about V4 and to share that across the Corps. So I would just encourage you, if at all possible, to find funds that we could use in that manner to share across the districts as they learn about V4.
Okay, David, Gary, your question that came through early on about the slides being available with the web link was my answer that I presented earlier regarding the file share in the lower right-hand corner sufficient, or would you like for me to reload the original PowerPoint presentation for the LEED pilot project? David, your audio is turned on for a response. Okay, David, hopefully you can get back with us. A question from NWK Design Branch is, do campus applications receive the same 5 hours of technical assistance or more?
They do receive the same, and we anticipate that some projects will require less, some may require more, and we should be able to adequately address from our end, the need on the staffing side. So right now, the technical team is largely in the LEED department at USGBC. That will be expanding to GBCI as well as our technical customer service teams. So we do have capacity to broaden that out a bit if some project teams are finding that they need more assistance than we had initially planned. So that's fine.
Okay, Jeanette?
Yeah, another question we had here, yeah, we did. Another one that we had here was we had heard that a project that's a LEED 2009 can move into the LEED V4 beta. If we do that and we find that after going through a bit of the beta that it's better to move back to LEED 2009, is that something that projects can do, or are they committed to LEED V4 once they transition?
It is possible. We do expect that some percentage of the participants will wind up ultimately getting to a place where they would want to back into LEED 2009, whether it's because they ultimately can't reach a certification level or there's some issue. So we will allow that whether or not the project had previously been registered for 2009. So even if a brand new project just registers for V4 out of the gate, there is always that option that we would help move them in. And right now, we know that the process, we don't have the workflow worked out, but we do know that the process for that would involve our technical teams assisting with the project team to understand, okay, if you had earned these points in, or these credits in version 4, what can we automatically already know that you've earned in version 3? So what can you kind of check off your list as, you've already documented, where is that interoperability between the systems. So it's something we're expecting and anticipating. So we are working on the transitional elements for project teams who need it.
Okay, well that seems to wrap up all of our questions. If there's any lingering discussion, please bring it to the table right now before we wrap up. Okay, Paula, would you like to say an ending note?
Sure, and the ending note is that we appreciate everyone's time. We hope that you have a chance to look over the materials that were presented for both programs, and if you have any